Welcome to the Corporate to Coach podcast. I'm Pamella, a former corporate professional turned certified life and business coach and mentor. If you're ready to sign clients, grow your soul-led coaching business, and shed the employee identity so you can step fully into business ownership, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to my podcast. I am so pleased to announce that you are listening to the Corporate to Coach podcast. Yes, that is correct. The Build Your Coaching Business Around the 9 to 5 podcast has officially completed its rebrand, and this is the new name, officially announcing the Corporate to Coach podcast. Don't worry, all of the previous episodes are going to remain. Everything that I have already done on the Build Your Coaching Business Around the 9 to 5 podcast isn't going anywhere, but moving forward, it will be the Corporate to Coach podcast. So for this self-titled episode, I am going to go over why I changed the name. I'm going to go over what it means to go from corporate to coach. I'm also going to be sharing about 5 of the shifts that you will likely experience as you make the transition from your career, your corporate to coach transition, your career, whatever career you're in now, into being a coaching business owner. And then we'll see how we go for time and probably wrap it up there. I have so much I want to share with you, but as ever, I need to constrain for the podcast and try and keep it to one topic at a time. So, the Corporate to Coach podcast. Why did I change the name? Now, I might go into this in a bit more detail in terms of how I went through the rebrand and my thoughts around the rebrand, but this is the really controversial reason that I have changed the name from Build Your Coaching Business Around the 9 to 5 to Corporate to Coach. And it will shock you. You may even fall off your seat. It is so profound. It is so extraordinary. It's almost laughable. The reason I have changed the name is because, drum roll please. Oh my gosh, you're going to laugh when you hear this, is because it was a freaking mouthful and I needed to shorten it. That was the reason. Oh my God. Wow. I know, did you fall off your seat? I practically fell off my seat telling you. Now, I say that. I say that with complete sarcasm and complete jest, because that is literally the reason. I have loved the podcast. I chose the name because it was like, it does what it says on the tin. And it was such a reflection of where I was at the beginning of the journey of wanting to do the podcast in the first place. I knew I had so much to say. I knew I had barely tapped the surface of what I wanted to communicate to you and the message I wanted to share. And I just wanted to get it out and I wanted to start. And I realized that I was procrastinating. I was coming up with excuses not to do it. I was getting wrapped up in the title and the branding and what I was going to call it and what it was going to be and the amount of research I did beforehand. And then one day I hit a wall and I just thought, no more. I cannot handle my shit anymore. I just need to take action. What is this podcast about? Who is it for? Well, it's helping coaches build their coaching business around the 9 to 5. It kept coming back to that. So I kept it simple and went with that name, even though I didn't love it, even though it felt long, because it is long, even though I knew it would change. I went with it because I didn't want to have any more excuses to stop me from just getting the bit that was important done, which is get the message out to you, trust the message as it wants to come through, actually just be an example for my clients in exactly this, like the progress over perfection piece. So I called it Build Your Coaching Business Around the 9 to 5, but Corporate to Coach is a name that I coined nearly 6 months ago now. And I had a feeling even then that it would become the new name, but I finally settled on it a couple of weeks ago. And I've finally then done all the extra bits that go with that, such as rebranding, such as doing new graphics, updating the bio, really thinking about who it is that I want to attract. And so the first thing that I want to address is if you're listening to this episode and you're like, I don't technically class myself as corporate, then lean in because this is really important. I do use corporate as a catch-all. Arguably, I could have said employee to coach, but it didn't have the alliteration and it didn't quite have the ring to it. So we just have to settle with the imperfection of the catch-all phrase of corporate. Because the truth is, many of my clients kind of work in corporate but don't think of themselves as corporate professionals, even though they have an established career. So I actually sat down and went over all of the professions that I've served in my capacity as a business coach. And it's so funny. The amount of people with the same job title is actually hilarious. But this is the breadth of people that I have served. I have supported people that are assistant level all the way up to C-suite. The majority of them fall within management, senior management, and C-suite, but there is absolutely no preference as far as that's concerned. That just happens to be where the skew has been in terms of the types of titles and level of seniority. In terms of the types of job roles, it has varied. I'm just looking at my notes here. It has varied from human resources, marketing, sales, business development, IT, customer service, accountancy. So basically, all of your like operations, procurement as well, all of your operations and back end. Accountancy does include finance because you've got payroll, you've got general finance managers, and then you've got specialties within those areas. But I've also worked with, and this is where I find it really interesting, I've worked with engineers, teachers, air hostesses, lawyers, and receptionists. So such a variety. And I love that. I love that so much. And even then, the really interesting thing about the clients I work with is that I don't often find out their job title until a few sessions in, because it's never the determining factor. The thing that qualifies my clients and the people that work with me is that they can recognize that they have an identity wrapped in their current career. And because of the identity that they have in the career that they have been pursuing for the last 2, 3, 4 decades of their career, is that as they are building their coaching business, they are struggling to grow as quickly as they wish. They are struggling to sign clients as quickly as they want to. And learning the business side, building their business bones, and really grasping the business aspect that goes into growing a coaching business is an area that they are very open to admitting that they do not have experience in, and that they recognize that they need to learn the skill of marketing, selling, offer creation, pricing, and delivery in order to grow their coaching business, regardless of how effective they are as a coach. So this is the clientele that I support, because many clients come to me with confidence that they are able to guide a client through a transformation, often with a certification. Not always, but 95% of the time they are certified. They have been able to secure free coaching clients, even secured 1 or 2 paid clients. But the truth is, beyond posting on social media and creating a Facebook group or doing a little workshop and putting some offers out there, their business acumen is lacking. And that's not their fault, and it's not a bad thing. Most certifications that you join, even when you have a business component with the certification, are not really teaching you the fundamentals of business. They're not training you to learn the mindset of being a business owner. They simply give you the fundamentals to getting started with some kind of advertising and self-promotion. But they're not really teaching you the foundational requirements of what it is to be a business owner with the mindset of a business owner. And when you have been an employee all your life, that is a very different mindset. It's a very different transition. It's a very different beast that you're dealing with. So, this is what my work aims to do. I aim to equip coaches to build their business bones, to be more effective as business owners, to actually start thinking and operating as a business savvy business owner who is not just making decisions because they think it'll be easier to sell or because another coach did it and it was easy and successful for them, or they saw a post and saved it and they're trying to follow a strategy without proper guidance, especially when you're coming from an established career where you have experienced burnout, where you have experienced misalignment, hence probably why you became a coach in the first place, where you are seeking freedom, where you are seeking the opportunity to be able to create life on your terms. So if you want those things and you're trying to build a business that supports that, then you need to understand business at a level where no matter what strategy is being sold to you, no matter what niche you pursue, if any, no matter what offer you create or whatever price point you create, you have the foundational business bones behind you so that you can make aligned decisions, so that you understand what goes into offer creation, why, what marketing is, what the foundations of marketing even is, what the aim of marketing is, so you know how to troubleshoot and evaluate, and so you can see what is effective or isn't effective in your business, so that you know how to make decisions that are coming from an aligned place. This is why this is so critical, because when you're an employee, you're not taught those things. We are conditioned from a very early age to think and operate without an entrepreneurial spirit. And what I love about this work is that for my clients who end up staying in the 9 to 5 or who are going to be in the 9 to 5 for the foreseeable future, meaning they're not planning to leave for another 6, 12, 18, 36 months because they are here for the long game and they're not in the business of throwing it all to the wind, hoping it works, spiritually bypassing their way into, oh, if I manifest this and manifest hard enough and journal hard enough, then it will just come true. If I trust the universe, then clients will come out of nowhere. No, you still are operating in a 3D world. This is the equivalent of deciding you're going to make a cake, and instead of turning the oven on to 180, you decide to journal on how the heat of the universe and how the solar field of the sun is going to magically cook your cake. You know, you need to turn on the oven, get it to temperature, put the batter that you made into the oven so that it can cook. This is the thing. There is so much spiritual bypassing that happens in the online communities. And it isn't that we don't use those things, but there are fundamentals that are needed in the 3D world that allow commerce to happen. There are fundamentals that need to happen for an individual to recognize you as the coach of choice and to be able to purchase your services. And it fascinates me how so many coaches are struggling to sell when they're not selling, how they are frustrated that nobody is buying their offer when they themselves are not clear on what their offer is, when they wish that they could get more traction and more connection and more influence with their marketing and their messaging, but they have no connection and no influence and no traction with their own messaging. So, on a 3D level, there are components to business that I see coaches are missing every single day. And for the coaches that are doing those things, that have those things, it is often that they have created it out of misalignment, which is why they're not compelled to take action on those things every day. And so when you are either not taking the action or you're taking the action, but it's not in alignment, then what you're going to find is the results you create don't feel great. So you don't feel that compelled to make them again. Or you create no results at all, and results generally being very little engagement with real people, very little interest in your offers, very few purchases, and very few clients. And so you end up in this vicious cycle of wanting something, not taking the actual actions that you need to cook the metaphorical cake, and then finding a disengaged, disinterested, disheartened approach to your business that simply compounds every day and gets to the stage where you end up going back to the 9 to 5, staying in the 9 to 5, or never really believing it's possible for you, or just continuing to throw money into the void and never really getting there. And so, this episode, we're going to now dive into the things that I have had to shift, that I have spoken about many times throughout the previous episodes. But I feel like this topic is due for an update, because there are a couple of things that I see over and over again that really do need to shift at the identity level. There are shifts that are happening that you are looking to create in your life and in your business, but also in your identity when you are making that transition from corporate to coach. There are things like the way that you measure success in your employee identity. Your measurement of success tends to be the getting to the top of the pay bracket and then moving up to the next pay bracket, either by promotion or a new job. Your measure of success tends to be by the title that you can acquire. The measure of success tends to be by the recognition that you can receive from external sources, such as your manager, such as your peers, such as even your customers and clients, like the people who you serve in your company, your stakeholders that you report to, your direct line of report and their direct line of report. So we go from a world where, as an employee, we are conditioned to look outside of ourselves as a measure of success. We're conditioned to focus more on how it looks than how it is. We're conditioned to focus on the measure of success by way of competition, because often there's only room for one promotion or one person to go to the top. And indeed, most organizations, there are less positions at the top. You go from many at the assistant executive and like delivery roles, and then there's fewer managers, and then fewer C-suite, and then obviously one CEO. So that pyramid approach means that there is scarcity. So if you have been in employment for longer than 30 days, frankly, because we all know it takes roughly 30 days to at least begin to change a habit. If you have been an employee for decades, then you have been conditioned for decades to measure your success on external measures under a scarcity model. The shift into entrepreneurship, into being a business owner, is completely different, because the only real competition is yourself, because there is nobody that you are looking for validation from externally except from within, and making sure that you deliver as you said you would to your clients, which is just really a basic standard of what we expect as a standard in the industry to uphold your services. That shift is everything. And yet it's so deeply ingrained. I often say to my clients, this is the deconditioning process, deconditioning from the scarcity, deconditioning from the need for external validation. And you know when you are tapped into the need for external validation, because you look at engagement and your heart sinks a little bit when you've only had a couple of likes. Or you open your calendar and another day goes by when you don't have a consult booked in, or a consult says no to you and you feel way more crushed than you thought you would, and you're actually just gutted and you can't bring yourself to promote again because you think, what's the point? Or it takes you much, much longer to recover from those setbacks. The need for external validation, the measure of success, has been so ingrained in us to be external that there is a massive shift. So beyond the like business bones that you're developing, the ability to create the ability to create a beautiful offer, to price appropriately, in alignment, effectively, that makes sense for your level of experience, for your current level of confidence, and for the transformation that you actually give your clients. But also to then actually execute on that and market and sell every single day, and not make it mean something about yourself when all you've ever been done is conditioned to judge how successful you are by external measures. Yeah, that's a massive shift. So when I work with my clients, especially in the one-to-one realm, we are looking at that deconditioning and all the ways that it shows up. Another thing that I see as a massive shift is not just that external validation, but that need for safety. Again, that safety coming from outside of you. again, there's that external shift from my safety, my regulation comes from knowing that I'm going to get paid every month, knowing that I'm pleasing the people that I need to appease. Thus, it creates people pleasing. That tends to create burnout because often people pleasing is highly misaligned, but we're often scared to put a toe out of line in case we ruffle feathers or piss off the wrong people in our company or get on the wrong side of someone, and that jeopardizes our risk, our opportunity for promotion because obviously it's a scarcity model. So when that happens, and we've been conditioned to know that we can go to work and just, on the days where we don't feel good, where we don't feel energized, where we're hungover, where we're tired because we had a busy weekend and it takes us a couple of days to ease into the week. And you know that no matter what, you're still going to get a paycheck at the end of the month. So you've never really had to find the self motivation and drive and passion to be able to show up, because in truth, even though you've labeled your job as those things, you've done it because actually you just want a paycheck. And if you're really honest with yourself, you wouldn't risk getting sacked because your need for safety and your need for finances obviously are a fundamental part of your survival. So when you have only ever learned to continue to show up for work, even when it goes against the energy that you have, you pair that with a level of people pleasing and burnout, of course, that creates a mindset and mentality that the minute you're short of your job, or the minute you actually start building your coaching business from a place of just pure drive and alignment, and when you're inspired and motivated and excited, it's easy. It's very easy to go into all or nothing thinking, to go into binaries of, well, I don't want to force it because if I force it, I'm just replicating my day job. And I left my day job, or I want to leave my day job because I don't want to burn out again. But if I actually listen to my body, then I would never show up in my business because I rarely actually have the energy because I am scared of burning out. So you never really put yourself out there. What that means is if you find yourself in that place, especially when you're holding both, especially when you have the 9 to 5 and you're building your business at the same time, you need to build that sense of self trust and that resilience in order to be able to show up powerfully in your business without betraying what your energy is trying to communicate to you. And again, in my one to one, this is so nuanced because this is going to look very different to everyone, to between everyone else. For some of you, the conditioning is very, very strong. Some of your external circumstances like continue to perpetuate that in a very real way. One of my previous clients had an extremely strict boss, whereas many of my clients actually operate in their day job with a high level of autonomy. And they actually are not just exercising the self trust, and they're not shifting their mindset on how they think about the value they bring to their job. So, in their own head, they create this like presenteeism culture where they have to stay seated and present at work, and they worry if it's perceived that they're not working all of the hours that they're contracted, versus the odd client that I get who is actually paid by the hour, watched by the hour, and literally clocks in, clocks out, and she has zero autonomy in her role. So there are so many ways that regardless of your level of autonomy, because everybody's level of autonomy in their role varies if you're still in a 9 to 5, there will be some factors that you are continuing to be conditioned by that feel very real, feel very circumstantial, and feel very out of your control. And one of the things that I do with my clients is that I will help you to really knuckle in and get very clear and very honest, but that requires a high level of personal power and having extremely strong boundaries, and often healing the inner child that got yourself into this profession or into this particular company with this particular set of circumstances in the first place, because it goes way back before your actual career started. To actually find safety within yourself, to know what the real edges are in terms of the level of autonomy you do have in your job, so that you can protect and ensure that you have the energy and the regulated nervous system to be able to work on your business when you choose to every day if you so wish. This is the work. If you're resonating with this and you want to like connect with me, jump on a consult and discuss what we can do together, then the link is in the show notes and you can schedule a consult anytime. Do not delay. Everything that I'm talking about is what is weaved into the day to day of how we coach together. And this is the thing, when we coach together, it isn't that I'm like coming to a session saying, right, let's unravel the way that you've been conditioned in your 9 to 5 today. What actually happens is that week by week, you're going to show up to session and say, look, this is where I'm at in my business. This is what I'm working on. This is what I have done, or in many cases, what I haven't done, even though I wanted to. And it's through that that we explore what's stopping you in terms of the bigger picture, life circumstances, 9 to 5 circumstances. And then we delve into the mindset behind that. Then we do any healing that's required behind that. And then once we've integrated the inner child, we've regulated the nervous system, we then bring it back to the tactical, practical steps in your business that you need to be taking. We link that to your wider strategy because we do that in the strategy session at the beginning of our coaching together. And then you're not only more empowered to make the correct next step for you that's coming from alignment, you have shifted your mindset in the deeper deconditioning work that we're doing around your life and 9 to 5 and business. So this is how it works on a week by week level. So let's continue with the examples. So I was just sharing there about the risk, the level of risk tolerance that you have. Now, this is something that I discuss in the exit plan in much greater detail, because for those of you who are listening, thinking, I know that I will be replacing my 9 to 5 with my coaching business, like that's ultimately the goal. I definitely want to leave. I'm 100% going to become a full-time, let's face it, if you want to become a full-time life coach, you're probably not going to be working full-time hours. I think I didn't start working on my business today until like 11 a.m. So when I say full-time, again, it's a catch-all term, but just your coaching business being the primary source of income for you. So the level of risk tolerance completely shifts, because when you are used to being able to go to work and knowing that you're going to get a paycheck no matter how much you work or how little you work every single month or every single week or however frequently you get paid, when you become a business owner, your level of risk tolerance has to increase exponentially, because business is a zero starting salary. There is no guarantee of revenue every single month. And of course, you can set it up in that way. You can create recurring monthly revenue. But at the very beginning of your business, which most of my clients are, they've started, like I said, they've certified, they've started creating content, they've even signed a couple of clients or they have free clients, and you're ready to turn this into a real business. Even though you're already working on turning it into a real business, you actually really just need to get that foundational, not just the foundations in place, but your foundational understanding of business in place. When that is happening, you're unlikely to already have a business that has recurring income or is set up to be scalable, where the money is at a place where it's highly reliable and consistent. Almost every single client that comes to work with me in the consultation says to me, I want consistent income. For there to be consistent income, there has to be consistent production from you. You have to consistently be in the energy of creation. You have to be consistently in the energy of receiving. You have to consistently be in the energy of expansion and abundance. But as I said earlier, if you've been conditioned into the energy of scarcity, if you've been conditioned into the energy of being able to rely on an external source of income without your necessary input reflecting that, even though lots of my clients also have the other side of the coin where they've also been conditioned that the harder you work, the more you earn, which becomes very confusing when you're holding both beliefs at the same time, then there needs to be a shift. When you shift your mindset from that scarcity model into that abundance model of you're open to receiving, you're open to creativity, you're open to abundance all the time, And therefore, the ripple effect of those energies is that you create from abundance, not scarcity, meaning you create not needing to create clients and money, but because of the joy of creation in and of itself, because you have something powerful to share from a place of leadership, because you know that when you speak or write, you have impact and influence, and that when you are in that energy, naturally it comes back to you versus I need to do that. I need to do this so that I can get that. It's such a subtle shift. But when you start to shift from that with the foundations of a solid business in place, that's when you start creating both in terms of what you produce, but also in terms of what you receive. And when you are learning to do this whilst holding down a day job, that's a lot to hold. So this shift is, yeah, I'm asking a lot from you. But also, the reason why you have been called to this is because you are stepping into a level of expansion where if you can meet this challenge, if you can meet this level of growth, if you can expand your capacity, your belief, your ability to hold these dualities, that is exactly what makes you the kind of person people want to hire as a life coach. Nobody wants to hire the life coach who had to run away from their life and hoped coaching would save them. Nobody wants to hire the person who just needs you as a client so that you can pay their bills, even if you hiring them helps pay their bills. It's such a strange thing to wrap your head around. But that energy of scarcity, that energy of needing you to fulfill something, needing your clients to fulfill something for you, needing swapping your, the title, the next promotion, the bonus that you're looking for clients, and then wondering why clients aren't coming. Of course, there's a misalignment. Of course, that felt unfulfilling to you. Of course, you burn out in your career because it isn't a sustainable way of living. And for those who awaken to that, once you see it, you can't unsee it. But when you then start to pursue an alternative path, there is a big difference between recognizing the misalignment of the path you're on, but then stepping into the version of you that actually embraces and thrives in the alignment of you. So many of us actually thrive, even though it's not true thrival, but we actually thrive in the dysregulation of misalignment. We actually find a lot of comfort in the areas of our life that aren't serving us. We love to complain about our jobs. We love to be unhappy because it gives us something to complain about. It gives us an excuse to open another bottle of wine on a Friday. It gives us a reason to feel down about ourselves and play the poor me thing, because what we really needed was internal validation that we never received. So if we can receive it from external validation by playing the poor me card, by playing the, oh my gosh, woe is me. Oh my gosh, I'm so burnt out. Oh my gosh, I need a break. Oh my gosh, life is so hard. Who do you become when there is suddenly nothing to say? Who do you become when life is really good and you're the only one in the room that actually is really happy and genuinely fulfilled and has some challenges that nobody else seems to understand? That is a really challenging part of the transition. It is a really, really challenging part of the transition, because what tends to happen is that the relationships that we have cultivated, the colleagues at work that we love to have a wine and a wine with, the friends that we catch up with on the weekends because the escapism is just next level, the complaints that we have with our spouses and friends and even the kids, dinner every night. What would the conversation be if we were actually talking about the things that expand us, the things that delight us, the things that excite us? For many of us, that transition is actually a step away from the unfamiliar. And that in and of itself is really, really challenging when we're not used to that. So that is the next transition. The transition from this not only scarcity deconditioning that we have been conditioned by as we develop our careers, but also this environment that we're used to, this familiar that we are deregulating from. that we're starting to teach our body and our nervous system that complaining, that frustration, that the victim, that the woe is me, that the depression, like this, that this is no longer a place that we want to stay comfortable in. And as uncomfortable as being unfulfilled, unhappy, frustrated at work, and burnt out is, as much as many of us would never openly admit that it serves us in some way, the only reason we stayed in it for as long as we did is because it actually met a very primal need to begin with. And that making that transition is incredibly difficult, requires a lot of self leadership, of personal power, of being willing to be radically honest with ourselves, and then making the change and doing the inner work and the healing whilst we are opening ourselves in our business to greater levels of visibility, greater levels of perceived judgment, greater levels of creativity than we've ever tapped into before. Yeah, it's confronting. It is confronting. So, this is the other piece of it. When we are navigating all of that, the other challenge and the other major transition that I see that my clients are often navigating, and coaches that I don't work with, but this is just what I see in the industry, is that when you are an employee, you take action at any cost. And you know this to be true if you've ever burnt out, if you've ever finally signed off for a holiday and you need a holiday to recover from the holiday because the holiday was just the wind down. You never actually really got a chance to fully rest until the last 2 days of the holiday, by which it's over and you're back at work again. And within 2 days of being back at work, none of it stayed because it's the same shit that you left behind and nothing's really changed. Action at any cost. This is what it is to be an employee, because the mission and the vision of that organization is bigger than you. Because your employment, your safety with that regular paycheck that you like to receive, meaning very low risk needed, but at least you have the security and the stability, is therefore aligned to a mission that isn't your own. Which means even when it's misaligned for you to be taking action, you take action anyway, because you're tied up in the values of the company and what that means for your values in terms of safety and security, versus you being in a position to be able to prioritize your need for regulation, for alignment, for rest, and to be able to take action on your terms. And when that is the case, what I see happening is that when you do go to work on your business, you're either operating from a depleted energy tank. So you have a very real risk of actually burning out if you give the remaining energy that you have to your business, and you fear that, so you hold back. Or you've left the 9 to 5, you have experienced the burnout, and then you refuse to let yourself meet your edges because you met the edge that created the burnout in the first place. You don't trust that you can be aligned to your own vision and your own mission, because any kind of alignment to a mission or vision equated to burnout in previous roles. So if this is you, this is a practice of self-trust. And it's recognizing that any form of manifestation, any form of being in alignment, usually means that when you have reached alignment, moment to moment, hour by hour, no matter, even if you just get 1 hour a day to work on your business, if you spend 40 of those 60 minutes focused on getting into alignment, what you will find is that you have the energy to powerfully work on your business. But when you don't get in that energy, it will be an uphill battle. And this is what I mean when I say it isn't about necessarily being happy, being excited, being motivated. No. Alignment is not those things. Alignment is actually much more grounded, and it's about deeper connection to your bigger picture, to your why, to your mission and vision. But as you've seen, it requires that deconditioning and separation of not fearing that aligning to any mission or vision equals burnout, but because that's what it meant when you were working for someone else. It's re-trusting yourself, remembering yourself, reconnecting to yourself. Because often what I see is that people who have, especially people who have burnout, and especially people who are scared to like use the very last remains of their energy to work on their business, that's a massive scarcity model. And often what they think is listening to their body is just a dysregulated body telling them, please don't hurt me anymore. Please don't expend any more energy. Please don't write that post. Please don't go live. Please don't get visible because I'm scared I'm going to get hurt. It's your survival mechanism stopping you from showing up in your business. But if you stay connected to your survival mechanism and you keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, eventually there's nothing left. The business has dwindled. There's basically nothing to show for it. You're continuing to invest, continue to think about it 24/7, but really the burnout is coming from the dialogue you're having with your nervous system over the fear of showing up. What needs to shift is learning to be able to regulate your nervous system and then step into a self concept of self trust, of self love, of self validation, of creating your own safety and security from within. Recognizing that that higher state of being actually tends to give you more energy and then creating from that place. This is how one of my very recent clients actually said to me just 2 weeks into working together. She said, ironically, in the last week, her 9 to 5 has got 5 times busier. And yet, because of this deconditioning work we've already started to do, she already feels 5 times more energized to do more in her business than she has done in the last year. How is that possible? How is that possible? Well, it's possible from a regulated nervous system, a shift in the mindset, and deconditioning from the scarcity mindset of the 9 to 5. So, have a think about this and what this means for you moving forward. Where do you need to decondition from the mindset of the 9 to 5? And as I always say, when you do this work, I believe it makes you a better employee. I have seen firsthand how it has made my clients better in their 9 to 5. They're more regulated. They're less needing validation from anyone else. They're more secure in themselves. They're working to a greater mission and vision that is outside of their job. And what happens when you become less attached and codependent on something? That thing tends to want you more. There tends to be more attraction with you in that relationship. So what happens is that your relationship with with your business improves, but as a mirror, your 9 to 5 tends to improve as well. Now, hands up for my long-term clients. So I have clients who've worked with me for a year, 2 years, 3 years, even. And this goes in ebbs and flows because the truth is, you're always going to be meeting new levels and your circumstances are continuously going to evolve and change. For example, one of my long term clients who's been with me for like 2.5 years, maybe three actually, but 2.5, 3 years. And she, her 9 to 5 is going through a really exciting period of expansion and growth at the moment. And because she is such a valued employee, because she didn't end up quitting 2 years ago like she really wanted to, because she actually has such incredible boundaries now, because she holds herself with the reverence that she absolutely freaking should, because she's a freaking queen at what she does. She's at C-suite and she absolutely rocks it in her job. And she no longer takes shit from her CEO. She actually leads so powerfully with such integrity. But as her 9 to 5 is going through a period of massive growth and expansion, she's being met with new challenges and it's meeting new edges. And it is interesting because you go through these ebbs and flows of feeling your sense of personal power. But when you compare where you were to a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the kind of problems that you're dealing with now are completely different to the level of the way that you were approaching the same problems 3 years ago. So it's not that these problems don't ever occur, such as same in business. It's not that as your business grows or you go from signing one or two clients sporadically to creating 10K months to 25K months and beyond. It's not that you never have a sales issue. It's not that you never go through phases where you lose creativity, but the way that you meet yourself becomes stronger every time. The level of grace, the level of self-compassion, the way that you rever yourself through those periods, they become less problematic. They become less binary. So it's not so much oh my God, I'm such a failure. It's just, oh wow, I'm going through this. Okay, I really need to reconnect to myself. How do I do that? Whereas the first time you go through it, it's like, oh my God, what am I even doing? Maybe I just need to give up and just stay in my 9 to 5 forever and a day. The level of conversation just completely shifts the more you do this work. And as I said, it really does help you become a better employee and a better entrepreneur. So the last piece that I'm going to speak about is the embodiment piece. Because really, throughout this whole conversation, it really is the identity level. We mentioned earlier how the level of like your measure of success actually shifts as you become a business owner. It has to. You cannot rely on external validation. It doesn't mean you don't look at data. It doesn't mean that you don't strive for growth in terms of numbers, in terms of revenue, in terms of clients, in terms of feedback. Of course you do, but you don't use that to validate yourself. You use that as data to improve your services. So there is a separation there that needs to happen. And at the beginning of your business, they're incredibly entwined. As you scale your business, the lines become more clearly drawn. But for most of my clients, you're signing your first ever clients, you're growing your business, not scaling your business, which means you are validating things for the first time. You're experiencing things for the first time, like really putting yourself out there at newer and greater levels. You're selling at greater and greater levels. You're learning, growing your business bones, learning how to market and sell, learning all the different components of marketing and selling, from integrity without scarcity tactics. In a pressure-free way, in an attraction way. So there is so much that is shifting at the embodiment level and differently to a job. They're not just tasks that you do. It's not just a job description that you tick off. This is why AI has its limits. This is why you can't just type something, get AI to write every single post and then repost it and hope that you sign clients from that. I'm not saying don't use AI. That's definitely a conversation for another day. But what I'm saying is the action steps in and of itself do not create the results. This is why you can be posting every single day and not create a single client. This is why you can be thinking about your business every single day and not getting any results. Because it isn't the actions, it's the alignment. And the alignment naturally impacts your identity. And for those of you who are in an established career, and I was very much this person, when I first found coaching, I found it far more comfortable to say, yeah, I'm a client relationship manager in management consultancy. That was my title. In fact, I used to really, really love it. Like I used to be like, yeah, I work for like top 10 management consultancy firm. Well, technically it was a research and advisory firm, but yeah, I worked for the top research and advisory firm, top 10 management consultancy firm, and a client relationship manager. All of my clients are big ticket $1 billion companies. That for me used to just flow out of me. Now that's just muscle memory why I could do that again, but that isn't who I am anymore. But that was my identity. If my auntie and uncle, if my cousins, if my friends, family were like, how's the job going? How's everything happening? Like, how is it? Got a promotion? Have you still happy at work? And I'd be like, yeah, no, it's great. I've got a promotion, got a bonus the other day. I did a presentation, signed a new client. Like that was the conversation I was used to having. And I used to love complaining about it too. When I shifted into becoming a coach, I had to shift the dialogue around who I am. Not just what I do, but who I am. That impacted how I spoke about work, how I spoke about my day job. how I introduced myself, the title I would use to introduce myself, how confidently I would talk about my services, how I would allow myself to be a life coach in the room, even before anyone knew I was a life coach. I got to the stage where I would contribute to a conversation and people would be like, whoa, they would listen. And then when I tell them I'm a life coach, they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. That is the influence that you have when you are truly in your identity. But if you're in your identity of whatever your job title is, and then you're like, oh, no, yeah, and I do coaching sometimes, as you whisper it, then yeah, maybe that's why you're not creating clients yet, because the identity hasn't shifted. But as we can see, the identity is so mixed in with this conditioning. So we need to shift we need to decondition, build the business bones, create a new identity, and take massive action in your business from an aligned place. I wish it was a simple formula. I wish I thought about things in a really basic way so that I could just be like, here are the 3 steps to 10K. But I'm way too deep, way too nuanced. I mix spirituality and practical, tactical steps. I mix strategy and embodiment far too closely because it never is just one thing. Anyone who tells you that is selling you a lie. No, that's unfair. They're not selling you a lie. They're selling you a very specific solution. And when you're mistaking that specific solution to be the answer to all of your problems, and then you're wondering why it's not creating you clients, then yeah, that's an issue potentially in the way that it's being marketed. But there's also deeper maturity to be had in the way that we're investing and the kind of results that we're expecting. And I speak about that a little bit in some of my CEO series when I talk about investor regrets and remorse. That's the name of one of the episodes, and another CEO series episode where I talk about investor mindset. So if you've ever experienced that, then those episodes might be useful for you to have a listen to. So these are some of the shifts going from corporate to coach, going from employee to coaching business owner. I'm sure this gave you a hell of a lot of food for thought. I don't do simple. If you like me and you like our conversations, it's because you like the deep and we don't fuck around with the surface level stuff. So if you want to take this a level deeper and you want my coaching on your business, you want my help as you decondition, as you build your business bones, as you grow your coaching business so that you can sign clients and integrates being a coaching business owner, even if you have a 9 to 5, then I am the coach for you. And you can check the show notes to access my freebies. I recommend that you download the client creation guide. It's 30-page PDF with very clear outline on everything you need to create a client. I also have the visibility series, which at the time of launching, I did make limited, but I've decided to just open it up as an evergreen freebie because it was just so good. It was so popular. And it's really purely about helping you get visible as you market and sell. So the visibility series is a 3-part training. I think I've added a bonus in there since, but it's definitely a 3-part training with how to get on camera, how to overcome the fear of visibility. It's a brilliant piece of training. So go and access that. That's instant access. To work with me, you can work with me one-to-one anytime and just book a consult. If you can't find the link on my website, I will put the link in the show notes. But if for whatever reason you can't find it, drop me a DM and we have a free consultation at the time of this recording. And we can discuss what's going on with you, your business, where you're at, where you want to get to, what you're struggling with. And working together is 6 months, one-to-one. You get access to the portal. You get access to in-between session support, to weekly coaching sessions, because frankly, anything less than that is just a cop out, in my opinion. If you're growing your business, you're here because you're all in. You're growing your business because you're growing it every single day. And all of my one-to-ones get access to Thrive Group. And the next round of Thrive Group is actually coming very soon. So the details, again, are in the show notes. And Thrive Group is also a beautiful 6-month experience. That container is purely a business container. It is a container for you to come and get coached every single week. There is also in between session support with a Telegram group where you will have accountability check ins and celebration check ins each week. There are also messaging workshops so that I can review your messaging once a month and give you direct feedback. There are weekly coaching sessions, and you also get access to the Thrive portal. And that portal contains all of my trainings on business, offer creation, pricing, messaging, consults, systems, as well as recordings from all of the previous group coaching that we have ever had across Thrive Group. So you are always supported and you have absolutely everything you need to grow your business. But if you really do want that one-to-one aspect to really help you with the deconditioning piece around how life and 9 to 5 is challenging you in your business, then one-to-one is the place to go for that. That's everything. All of the links will be in the show notes. But I am so, so happy to bring you the newly rebranded Corporate to Coach podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it useful. And I'm very excited to work with you in the future and support you on the episodes moving forward. And if you found this useful and you're still listening, then please quickly grab your phone and just give this a couple of stars to help more people find the podcast. It really helps when you leave a review or leave a few stars. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode.